Hi, my name is Maruchi van het Veen from Drawing to Health, and welcome back. So last time we were talking about the sources that you can get a job from, and in this video we're going to talk about what to pay attention to when applying for such a job. So as you can see here, there's four things that you need to pay attention to, and basically job requirements, online presence, target jobs for your skills, and follow-up. So again, I'll be explaining each point individually. So the first point, job requirements. Now that might seem very obvious. Like, of course, you would want to pay attention to what the job requires of you, but it goes beyond just having a list that you can check off. It's more so, for example, some job requirements, some job listings have certain requirements. Some are actual minimum requirements, and others are preferred requirements. Now, minimum are absolutely mandatory. You must have these. If they say that a minimum requirement is for you to speak English, you must speak English. They'll probably usually use a certain certification level to gauge how far you are, or they say must be native speaker or must be able to have conversations with clients about something, that kind of stuff. They usually put it in. But if that says minimum requirement, you must be able to do this. Now, a preferred requirement, however, is a little bit different in that it's nice if you have these requirements that they're asking for, preferred, but if you don't, you could still apply for the job and it doesn't matter. It's just an extra. Um, so yeah, it's always a good idea to edit your resume to reflect skills that you might need for the job. So if a job requires you to travel a lot, it might be a good thing to put in there that a good skill of yours is to be able to, um, you know, to be able to travel a lot without having any problems or being a patient person or something like that. So it's always good to edit to reflect your skills that might be necessary for that job. Um, don't lie, however. Never lie, but just um, if you're a very organized person, but you don't really have like a job that very clearly defines that, it might be a good idea to put that in your resume under, um, you know, under skill set, because it's an important skill that might be needed for that job, and it's a good idea to highlight that particular skill. But again, don't say things aren't true because they're going to find out one way or another. So don't do that. Um, Now, of course, it's also important to highlight the relevant experience. Um, Again, this is usually for the minimum requirements. It's a good thing to do. Um, but yeah, it's just generally a good thing to pay attention to what the job requires from you, because those are things that you must be able to do, or at least have a mastery of in some degree. Now, another thing to pay attention to, because we're talking about online job hunting, that also is a good idea to have a good online presence. And with that is, that doesn't mean that you need to have all kinds of social media, but it is a good idea for you to have your Facebook. Um, um, a Twitter is a nice addition, but optional, because Twitter is usually very personal and short messages. Definitely a LinkedIn, because people want to know what you've accomplished and what you're like as a person. Because most of the time you're going to be working with a team. It's good for an employer to know what you're like. So having an online presence would help a lot. Um, do be careful that you don't put too much personal stuff on your Facebook. And if you do, make sure that you have those on private, because, you know, your future employer might not need to see your beach photos or, having a night out with the boys slash girls. They don't really need to see that. So do pay attention that if you have an online, like a Facebook and a Twitter and whatnot, that if you're applying for a job, to at least, consider your privacy settings. You don't want to get any sort of um, embarrassing situations. So that's always a good thing to pay attention to. Um, Now, this also might seem like an obvious thing, but target jobs for your skills. There's nothing wrong with challenging yourself to grow in things that you might not have much experience in. But when it comes to a job, they're usually looking for someone who's good at what they do, not just, okay, I suppose. So if they're looking, for example, hmm, what would be a good example? If they're looking for a gardener, they want someone who knows exactly what each plant is and what it needs and what it does, not someone who just likes to do their garden in their free time. They need to be someone who has knowledge and skills for the job. Um, Not just a passing interest or something that they do as a hobby. Of course, once you're in your job and you want to expand your capabilities and add more skills, that's always a good thing. But um, make sure that the job you're getting, that you're properly qualified for it. This will save you and your employer a lot of grief in the future. Because if your employer finds out you're not capable, he might fire you again anyway, and then he'll have to look for a job, and then you'll also be out of a job very quickly. So, for both, it's not a good thing. So that's also that's a very important thing. Just make sure that the job that you're applying for falls within your skill set. Now, if it's something that is requires a lot of generalized skills, um, you know, you could always apply for one of those. Hmm. But for the most part, it's certain jobs require certain skills. That's nearly always the case. A lot of generalized things are, um, well, I wouldn't call them easy jobs, but there are jobs that you might not really want, you know. So make sure that whatever job you're applying to aligns with your skill set, but also with what you like. Um, and now, obviously, that might not always be something that you could do, but at least have it be something that you don't hate. At least, um, not liking your job, it can happen that you need a job and then you end up with something that you might not like. That's fine. Just make sure you don't hate your job, because that would, um, not be good for anyone. So yeah, make sure that your skills align with the job that you want. And also important is a follow-up. And what I mean with follow-up is that when you apply for a job, they'll usually tell you, okay, thank you for the interview, and we'll contact you. Um, some companies might forget, some do that on purpose, that they don't contact you, in order to see whether you're actually interested in the job that they're offering. So it's always a good idea to follow up, like usually they give you a time frame in which they want to answer. Sometimes they might say, "Oh, we'll contact you within the week." Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, we're going to contact you after 2 weeks," something like that. But once that period of time is has passed, it's always good to mail them again. Again, express your interest, express your willingness to work in the company. Try and make the mail, or yeah, usually it's going to be a mail. You can always call. That's also a good idea because it's much more personal. But also always be positive in the follow up that you do. Um, because they want someone who is glad to be working for them. So it's always it's important to be positive in the way that you approach them in your follow up. Um, it is a good way for them also to know that despite the wait, you're still interested and you're still enthusiastic about the idea of working for them. So that is always a good thing to keep in mind. Try and stay positive. So yeah, that's basically the four things that you need to pay attention to when applying for a job. So that's it for this video. The next video will be about what to pay attention to in regards to actually applying. So basically what you would put on your CV, how you would write your mail, that kind of thing. Basically how to apply to your job online. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.